Hello and welcome back, folks, to FilmPro Productivity and Success, the podcast that aims to help film professionals and really any creative person out there to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 142. Don't be a useful idiot. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Martin Luther King Jr. Unquote. I strive to find topics that will allow you to engage in high-level thinking. That's the ability to work on your life and career at the same time that you find yourself living and working in it. And in last week's show, I looked at pattern recognition as the ability to spot existing or emerging patterns is one of the most, if not the most, critical skills in intelligent decision making. Today's topic is kind of connected to all this, as it too involves critical thinking. This is perhaps more of an awareness drive kind of episode, but it's something I believe is worth raising, as becoming someone else's pawn for an idea or a cause is something you have to avoid if you want to achieve a truly productive life. The Cambridge Dictionary describes a useful idiot as a person who is easy to persuade to do, say, or believe things that help a particular group or another person politically. It is important to note, too, that the term useful idiot is subjective and often used in a derogatory manner. It typically refers to individuals who are perceived as unwittingly supporting or promoting a cause or ideology that may be against their own best interests. It suggests, too, that they are being manipulated or used by others for their own agenda. This term has commonly held political connotations, but don't get worked up about it. Although historically used to describe some of those on the left, it can equally well be applied to those on the right of an argument. And I offer it up here under the banner of neutrality and the pursuit of knowledge, and not to espouse any particular political purpose, argument, or agenda. But I'd add too that if you immediately find yourself objecting to it, then perhaps you need to step back and ask yourself, am I already someone else's useful idiot? This is such a sticky topic that almost before I started researching it, I hit a bump. I was going to give a quote from the Urban Dictionary, but I fact-checked the first description that came up there, and it turned out to be just plain wrong. It talked at some length, that description, about Lenin and how he used the phrase in various situations. But the fact checker I ran said this, which I felt worth getting out there right away before I get any further into it. It said the phrase useful idiot has often been attributed to Vladimir Lenin, but he is not documented as ever having used the phrase. So I'm going to put that whole element aside for just now. The earliest exact match of the phrase useful idiot appeared actually in April 1948 in an article from the International News Service published by the San Francisco Examiner of California. The phrase was spoken by an Italian politician and rendered into English as useful innocence, which is quite interesting. But it may also be translated as useful fools, or as a term that is better known as today, useful idiots. But don't forget the term useful innocence, because this is about manipulation that I'm talking. Wikipedia says that a useful idiot is political jargon currently used as a reference to a person perceived as propagandizing for a cause, particularly a bad cause originating from a devious, ruthless source, without fully comprehending the cause's goals, and who is cynically being used by the cause's leaders. And I'd like to think that already a few examples are coming to your head right now in this, but here are 3 examples that I've prepared for your reference. But This sort of stuff is everywhere at the moment. First one I have is that during the Cold War, some Western intellectuals and public figures who sympathised with or defended the Soviet Union's communist regime were labelled as useful idiots. They were accused of unwittingly promoting or supporting an ideology that suppressed individual freedoms and violated human rights, despite not fully understanding the consequences. In the political realm is my second example. There's cases where individuals passionately support a leader or a movement without critically evaluating their actions or their policies. They may blindly follow and amplify messages without considering the potential negative consequences or realising that they are being used as a tool to advance an agenda that may not align with their own personal interests. And whether you're on the left or right of politics, I suspect that you will immediately believe that this is clearly referring to the supporters of whoever your own party is against. But I ask you, as a critical thinker, to consider whether this may also apply to your party and your actions. I just want to separate that politics from you as an individual. And the third example that I found and considered was that in today's age of social media, I find it more and more difficult to find truth. I have brought this up quite often. As I get older, I recognise more and more patterns in this world that cause me concern. And I find more and more that when something doesn't make sense, a simple critical thinking model, which I call follow the money, can often be alarmingly revealing. So there's been instances where social media influencers, specifically, with large followings, unintentionally spread harmful messages or misinformation. They might endorse products or ideas without fully researching or understanding the implications, acting as unwitting endorsers of potentially harmful practices and ideologies. And that may come from other people in the public eye as well, like actors, etc. But if you allow yourself to work, and this is my whole point here, if you allow yourself to work for someone else's cause, if you allow yourself to be unwittingly manipulated into giving someone else's goals or dreams or ambitions that they've convinced you are also your own, but if you allow that to happen with your time and your money and your focus or your influence, then you are already perhaps a useful idiot or a useful innocent to that person. Here's a few tips for those of you that want to avoid the term being applied to you. Firstly, I'd say educate yourself. Stay informed and seek well-rounded understanding of the issues and causes that you care about. Secondly, practice critical thinking. Develop your critical thinking skills by questioning information, analysing sources, and considering multiple viewpoints, as I did, I mentioned a minute ago, with the very first thing that came up when I was researching this with the Urban Dictionary, and I did the fact checker on it. That's the sort of thing you must do these days. Number 3 in my notes here is seek diverse perspectives. Engage with people who hold different viewpoints and be open yourself to hearing their perspectives. You don't need to buy into them, but you should consider them. Next, I have consider motives and agendas. When you're evaluating causes, organisations or individuals, it can be very helpful to examine their motives, affiliations and potential biases. As I mentioned a minute ago, the big thing that I use these days is follow the money. If something doesn't make sense, follow the money. Just try and apply that. Why does this thing happen? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't logically sound possible. Find who's making money out of it, and you might find that things start to make sense. And next on my list is trust your instincts. Pay attention to your gut instincts and intuition. If something feels off or does not align with your values, take a step back and evaluate the situation more critically. This kind of happened with me when I was working with somebody, and I realised that my values were in an opposite direction to them. I didn't like the way they were speaking to people. I didn't like the way they were treating people. And it took a step back from that for me to go, I'm never working with this person again, and I have never worked with that person again. But my instinct was already telling me there's something wrong here, and it was one of the best things I've ever done was to get out from under that person's influence, because in a way I had been their useful idiot or useful innocent for far too long. Finally, here I've got take responsibility for your choices, because ultimately it is important to take responsibility for your own beliefs, your own actions, and your own decisions. You need to be proactive in conducting research, seeking those diverse perspectives, and critically evaluating information. It's all about high-level thinking. The loyalty of useful idiots can be seen as positive, but they often align themselves with ideologies that do not benefit them. Public figures and online influencers also have a responsibility to be cautious with their messaging, as their words can unintentionally manipulate audiences and spread harmful ideas. So it's essential for both the audience and the public figures to be mindful of the potential consequences of their words and actions. It's even more essential, perhaps, that you remain aware of the danger I talk about here today. It's also essential to approach the term with caution and recognise the subjective nature and potentially derogatory connotations associated with it. So perhaps if you're not that keen on using the term useful idiot, the term useful innocent might serve the purpose better. So this is the midpoint in season 11. If you are enjoying the show, please do engage with me on social media about it. The more people that sign up to listen, the more people who share links on social media, and the more interaction that I have there, then the more likely it will be that I will continue doing the show. So if you love the show, please let me know. Screen grab your phone as you listen and post it with a link on social media, as that's a great help. And the other thing that, and tag me in it, remember, as well. Do make sure I'm aware that you're doing it. And some link within whatever you post to let people find the show is another useful thing to do. People on social media these days are very, very lazy. And, you know, at the moment I've got it set up where they could just need to do 3 clicks and they can subscribe. But you're less likely to get someone to do 3 clicks than just 1 click, and even that's pretty hard. Anyway, if you can do that and put that on social media, that's a great help. And the other thing that I'd love to see is reviews on Apple Podcasts. That's Apple UK or our .com, whatever is the one that relates to how you listen to the show. And I'd very much appreciate your support in this way. Let me also thank to Andrew Durning, who's done a lot of work on the YouTube channel. The shows go out, the past shows go out 2 per week on the YouTube channel. I'll post links to it in the show notes for this one. And it was a chap called Andrew Durning who helped me put all that stuff together, and he worked extremely hard on it and extremely efficiently on it as well. I was very pleased. The rate he went through it was fantastic. So it was going out 2 per week on the YouTube channel, and I'm sure it's just at FilmPro Productivity or however that works. Look to the show notes for a direct link to it. But the reason I'm raising it is Andrew's got a good few podcasts of his own. He's quite prolific out there doing shows about kind of popular culture. He's got one on Thomas the Tank Engine, he's got one on Red Dwarf, which he's just launched, and he's well worth tuning into. So look to the show notes for direct links on some of them. And also I want to say look out for Gary Hewitt's show. It's called Choose Film. It's another podcast, and it's a real retrospective, is what it calls, REEL, where he works with guests and a fellow presenter to discuss films that already exist. And I went and did one with him recently, which he chose the theme underdog movies. He asked me which film I wanted to do, and the obvious one to me was Cool Runnings, which we did a whole show on. It's about 1 hour 15 minutes. It was good fun, and it's just a great show to follow and subscribe to. So I'll add a link to that as well. Getting back onto other things, though, I think I'll leave it for there. This is the halfway point, as I say, in the season. More is to come. I've got a feeling next week's show is going to be about time blocking, but I reserve the right to change my mind on that one. In the meantime, though, let me end with some words from the wonderful Martin Landau, who said, "It's better to live as your own man than as a fool in someone else's dream." Now take control of your own destiny, keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success. The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Ehimitsu. You can view the show notes for this episode, the full show notes only on the official website filmproproductivity.com. You can also follow my personal accounts on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show directly on Twitter at filmproprodpod, or on Facebook at filmproproductivity. Please continue to support the show, folks, by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review.